time to talk Survivor. We dropped the 4 and kept the 2. And now you've come to get our take, so this is what we'll do. John will make himself laugh, Andy's talking just won't stop. The backup hosts, they're adequate, but at least this song's a bop. For reasons undetermined, we're still cutting this song short. It's the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast.
Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am John, and my co-host, who has very little value to add, is Andy. We are talking episode 5 of Survivor Season 42. And Andy, now that we're back in the groove of podcasting together, how'd you like this episode?
Meh.
Yeah.
I have very little to add other than that. Nice talking to you, John. Let's move on.
Yep. It was acceptable pre-merge content. It was perfectly fine. Just replacement level Survivor, which
yes,
I'll accept.
So I wasn't able to watch last night because my cable decided not to work in like the 1 hour a week I genuinely need cable for. So I watched it this morning. So that might also contribute to a little lack of enthusiasm on my part because I was tired. You know, I'm a night person. You know, I could have stayed up late and watched it and had some energy, but yeah, I was just like, eh. So it's possible it was that, or, you know, if it was actually an entertaining episode that might have woke me up from my workday. Thanks, Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it at the usual time, and I can tell you, didn't move the needle for me. So I don't think it's just you.
Yeah. And I also don't, because I'm not really seeing a lot of heated conversation going on out there, you know?
Yeah.
I get not a lot of complaints, but it's just, you know, it just kind of is. I mean, even the fervor of, you know, how Survivor spoiled that Tori was going to get an idol started to die down a bit because I guess they didn't. But yeah, it's I'm ready for the merge or whatever it is we're going to get next week, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, it's disappointing when there's no real good discussion points about an episode. That's the only problem with the Meh episodes. It's like it's fine as a TV viewing experience, but then when you have to podcast about it, it's like, oh shit, I need something to talk about. I wish something had happened. It had been good. It had been bad. Something. You don't want the, you know, what is there, 40-degree day, whatever it was from The Wire.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Although 40 degrees in my world is like, you know, call the police. People are melting.
I was going to say, that is definitely something that would be notable.
I don't know what the police would do about it, but still.
I mean, at least like...
probably call the ambulance. That might be more useful.
I was going to say, or you call like the fire department. They could just hose you down. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
generally, it's better when the fire department turns hoses on people than when the police.
Well, and also if you requested it, that, you know, consent is a nice thing to have with the fire.
Yeah, I'm sure they all say that in front of the advisory boards. It was requested.
Sure. I don't know how your Canadian fire departments operate. All right, so let's move back to talking about some Survivor. The reason that people showed up here to listen to this podcast. What did you think about the tribal council? Did you feel like you got the result you wanted?
Ultimately, yes. I mean, another issue has been a lot in the pre-merge is that, you know, I don't care that much. They presented us often with two choices. I'm like, sure, one of them could go. I'm not really attached. But I gotta feel like despite, like the last time you and I talked, that last time we talked, we were saying that Daniel was providing a lot of entertainment from his, you know, terribleness. I gotta say, by the end of this one, I didn't think he was the right call for them, but I was glad to see him go. I just, by the end of this episode, was just sick and tired of his like big time beta energy. It's just like enough already.
Well, I mean, so if we're talking about the results, like, no, this was not the result I wanted, because if Daniel was going to go, you know, I want him to go out through a series of comical errors. Like, I want him to continue to be the comedy relief or the comedic relief that he has been through the first couple episodes by being so terrible at Survivor. Like the swimming when he had the screwed up shoulder thing, that was like mildly funny. And then making fun of him for it.
More indicative of like how everybody on that tribe was sick of his shit.
Yeah.
More than anything.
And I mean, like the continued insistence about Chanel bailing on him, that was mildly funny from like a cringe perspective of like, how are you still thinking this? And how do you perceive the world? I think someone mentioned that he worked on the Jeb Bush Please Clap campaign. So no, I can kind of see how he sees the world, I guess.
Honestly, he's the most Jeb of Survivor
is.
contestants that I could think
He's
of.
very please clap. He's got that energy. But really, like, I wanted him to like cave spectacularly at tribal council one last time, or just flame out in a bigger way, and just, left with a whimper. Like, alas.
Yeah, I mean, we did get the one last thing that I think was what tipped the scales for me when, the screenshot for this podcast. The thing you've already mentioned that I'll be honest, I don't think I'll add very little value here. And it's just like, yeah, I think you're right. And that's true of the season. And this is a part where I think we should do this every season, just in case, we get new listeners, sometimes the survivors themselves. So, just to clarify, I am not speaking of Jeremy Strunk, the person who I do not
Daniel.
know. There we go. I don't know where I got that from. I am not speaking of Daniel Strunk, the person who I don't know. I will never know. I'm talking about Daniel, the Survivor character, and I was just over his absolute cloud of loser. It was too much by this point. It was like, and maybe that's it, because like it was like there were moments. That's the whole character they built for this guy, and it was funny before, but now it's like, all right. I mean, I guess they're playing the hits, but it's just not as interesting anymore. I've gotten this. Let's move on. So when the vote, I didn't think the vote was going to be him, and I also don't think it probably should have been him, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I was glad it was him. I was like, that's enough.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't hurt that Chanel is the most attractive woman on the cast.
You said it, not me, but I will second that opinion. Also, yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I'm fine with losing him because, if you're not going to be entertainingly bad, then just go. That was what you were contributing.
Yeah, and I think it's because he was completely declawed at this point, right? Like, they all knew that it was nothing, and so there wasn't really anything that he could mess up anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just, he tried to do it with the fishing, but like that just wasn't hitting. I mean, it was a fun juxtaposition between his fishing trip. What a lovely fun journey. It's a lot harder. And then Jonathan coming back with like the fish that looks as good as the ones they were given. Maybe they still were the reward fish, but it looked like he was getting a lot of good stuff.
Right.
So, and that's not going to be a flattering comparison to anybody. So again, it just wasn't like, haha, like it wasn't Fishback struggling with the log. It was just like, enough with your nebbishy bullshit. I'm ready to play some Survivor here.
Yeah. So speaking of playing Survivor, you already alluded to this, and I think we're going to be on board here because I'm guessing you don't think that they made the right decision about who to vote out.
No, and I've said that, but let's get into your reasons first. I'll let you go on.
All right. Well, I mean, for me, besides appearance factors here, I think it's really just that Daniel is worse at this game than Chanel is.
Yes.
Not that Chanel's great. She's certainly better than Daniel. But, I mean, Daniel just crumbles when he's challenged. He hasn't proven to be, like, adept at anything. I wouldn't feel too concerned about Daniel masterminding some plan to betray me because you've seen him in action, right? That doesn't seem within his skill set. Whereas Chanel, where she may had not been super successful at it before, certainly seems to have some ideas and is willing to act on them, right? Like, I think Chanel at least has a slightly better feel for this game than Daniel ever did.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lydia was right that they both had to go, but like we discussed last week, that's not how it works.
Right.
So I think Haya's initial impression that Chanel is going to be the more dangerous threat because Daniel's haplessness will prevent him from being so was the correct read. I do wonder if, with the fishing thing and then at challenge, again, him opting out, they were just sick of his shit and they're like, let's get rid of him. But sadly, that's the wrong call. You have to anticipate that if the merge isn't happening next, it's happening soon. So at that point, his, inability at challenges becomes a positive for you. And really, if you don't merge next time and he sucks again because now he'll actually have to compete, well then you just lose Daniel, so who fucking cares, right?
we have on-screen evidence that they suspect that the merge is coming anyway. So that has to weigh into their decision, right? Like, as you said, if it's not this next vote, or if it's not after this vote, it's the next vote. It's very soon.
Yeah, and then so for evidence that Chanel's a more dangerous player, you get this actual vote, which, again, there's not much they can do. They've already cast the votes, but I wonder if walking back to camp, I was like, oh, I knew it. Because what happens? Daniel does what he's told. He tries to vote out Chanel with the group. Chanel does not do what she's told, and she casts a vote for Mike. And we'll get into the reasons why. But that shows that she's playing on a different level. And the fact that she didn't have a vote the last time you went, that was a laughable mistake, but it also shows that she is somebody who's always going to put her interests before everybody else's, and you're not going to know it until it comes up. So, she's far more dangerous. Neither of them can be counted on an alliance partner. So, like, who's the better person going forward? Neither of them. Who's the worst person going forward in terms of your interests? It's Chanel, because she's more dangerous.
Yeah, so let's talk about the voting strategies here, because there's a couple different angles here. First of all, the splitting votes with the majority here. We had Lydia and Mike split their votes. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that was the right move.
Yep.
Because and what's happening this season clearly is they're really taking into consideration the shot in the dark. And some people are saying in comparison to the last season, but believe it or not, not canon, but Ricard has said on Twitter, no, we thought about it a lot. That's why we worked really hard to make sure nobody would do it. But they're doing this, because what people would argue is Chanel's going to vote for Daniel and Daniel's going to vote for Chanel, so you don't have to do that. Well, a couple of things there. One, Chanel didn't do that, so you shouldn't really count on the people not in your alliance to further your goals when you have the option, as they did, to do something against it. Obviously, this could open up for Daniel and Chanel working together, but I think they probably have the read that that's not happening. So, you don't want to rely on them. And then if one or both of them decide to play the shot in the dark, now they don't have votes. So you can't rely on them to do the split vote thing. So it makes sense for them to do the split vote to protect against the shot in the dark. What do you think?
I mean, it might be slightly overkill because of the fact that they were pitching Chanel against Daniel and vice versa. But I mean, if you can hedge, why not?
Yeah, the only potential danger is the person who survives will feel like they're not part of the clan, they're not trusted. That's accurate. That's what's going to happen either way. Yep. These two know the score, right? I don't know. If it was less out in the open, if they the people that you were dealing with were a little more gullible, then maybe that's a concern. But no, man, Chanel knew what was happening. I mean, again, look at how she voted.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is I'm fine with hedging against a small risk when you have that luxury. And I think that's exactly what Chanel did. I mean, So the consensus agreement around what Chanel did, and maybe we're misattributing what she did. Who knows? We haven't had...
I don't think so, though.
I don't think so either. And we haven't had any sort of canon from the show that this is what she's doing. But the consensus agreement seems to be that she was trying to have a vote on Mike just in case she had one on her and then Daniel played the shot in the dark and it made him immune, right? So then it's a tie and she can at least try to convince the others to keep her over Mike.
Well, here's the thing. She might not even be counting on a tie because if Daniel plays the shot in the dark, there is no vote on her because he doesn't vote for her. In her mind, she doesn't know that the other three are splitting, right?
True.
She thinks it's 3 votes. If they're telling what they're telling her is truth, it's going to be 3 votes on Daniel, no votes on her because Daniel will not have a vote. He gave it up to play the shot in the dark. And then Mike would just go. Now, you don't even have to worry about the tie in that scenario. If Daniel's shot in the dark works, Mike goes, she's safe.
You've got 2 scenarios, one obviously much better than the other, but at least in the second scenario where there's a tie, you have a fighting chance, right? Either you won, you have a fighting chance. And then ultimately, her vote didn't mean shit anyway. Yeah. So you may as well just hedge against the long shot at that point because, if it turns out that she's the actual target, what was her vote going to do?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
At that point, your vote is just kind of it's superfluous. You may as well just do something like long shot vote with it and throw a vote on Mike. So good play by her.
Yeah. No, I think she planned it out really well. And then it also shows why it was smart of the other group to split. Because then If Daniel had played and he was safe, then Mike doesn't go home because they also put a vote on Chanel. See, that was why the split worked. That's why what she did was clever, and that's why they should have voted for her, because she's clever in a way that Daniel is not. Now, there's one small risk that, she's going to go back to this camp and Mike is going to be pissed. And it's like, if you just would have sat back, there wouldn't be. But again, she's already on the out.
Yes, exactly.
If this tribe goes to tribal council again, she's going home. There's no additional risk. At this point, it's survive this vote and hope that tomorrow brings you a whole new world of options, which is what it's going to look like. So
yeah. And that's the thing is, no matter what she did with her vote, she's really not changing her position in that tribe, as long as that tribe exists, right? Like, if there is another vote, well, your only hope really is probably winning immunity as a tribe. And if there's not, well, now you've got more options, because there's going to be a whole lot of things to consider when you go into a merge that might not have anything to do with your tribe.
Yeah, no, I think she's okay now. Like, I think she could flip pretty easily. And that's, again, why they should have voted her out. I'm glad they didn't, because I was actually, when I first saw the Mike vote, I was also like everybody else, like, what?
Right.
And then when I stopped to think about it, because, the shot in the dark, people aren't thinking about it enough. It hasn't been part of our viewing experience enough. It's like, oh, yeah, no, that was actually pretty clever. She's got something to her. So let's see what happens with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mike, who got a vote on him, because for me, he's gotten more entertaining as time goes on. Like, I don't know that I had a big opinion of him after, say, the first episode. But, last night I saw at least 2 people endorsing a gays for Mike hashtag on Twitter. So he's got that going for him. What are your thoughts on Mike?
Yeah, I like him. I think he's a good presence. I'm not like, a big fan or anything. It's not. That's true of basically almost everybody in this cast.
And this is, I think, going to be a problem. We'll discuss that when we get to the merge talk. But yeah.
But yeah, no, like I think he's got a good mix. I think what he brings to that tribe and to the season, and we're seeing it actually kind of throughout, is a bit of a stabilizing force. A lot of what recent Survivor has been is just so much like gameplay,
chaos,
manic gameplay, like right from the beginning.
Yep.
And I think because Mike projects this sense, like this, he's a stand-up guy, everybody likes him, even the people that weren't with him suddenly were. I think it's kind of calming down, and like that is, we'll talk about it a bit more, but I think could be a positive thing. It's been a bit of a frustration from recent seasons. It's like, man, why is everybody taking out the interesting people? Why are they all like, I don't care about tribe stuff? So, I think that's kind of a steadying influence. Like, I'm glad Ahai and Lydia has decided to work with him, especially as it resulted in the elimination of Daniel. But he's not just, raw honor guy. Like, he has talked to us about an understanding of the game. So, at least I'm not rolling my eyes at that, but I do think like he's calmed it down for them while being, somebody that's just like an engaging TV presence, if not like an exciting one.
And I think from as a Survivor player, he kind of reminds me of something we used to say many, many seasons ago, which is, you don't play a post-merge game in the pre-merge. He seems like that. Like, that's his vibe. Like, no. For the pre-merge, let's just take it easy. This is simple. Like, I'm going to have a majority. We're going to vote with that majority. And I'm just going to stay in it until we get to the merge. And that, like, he wasn't trying to get cute. He's orchestrating votes that, splitting the vote. I wouldn't call that cute. That's covering your ass. Like, that was the right thing to do. He wasn't flipping back and forth on people. Daniel essentially flipped on him, and he's like, okay, I'm going to move over to this other side now. And now these are my steady group of 3. We're good.
Yeah, and it seemed like a good read that Ahai and Lydia seemed to be a stable pair that were working together in direct comparison to, and obviously not a difficult choice to make.
Right.
Or like, well, how astute that he understood that. But it's like he was receptive to that and was like, you know what? I would rather work with you than those 2 nutballs. And, big on you. Good job for that, Mike, because good call.
Yeah. And, as he got closer and closer to the merge, this idea of not letting the other tribes know he has an idol by not saying the phrase at the challenge, I get that seeming more appealing. It's not a terrible plan. The one flaw here is that anytime one person knows on Survivor, you got to assume there's a risk of everyone else finding out. But, you know, now ultimately we know that that didn't matter because he activated his idol at that immunity challenge. What did you think about that, by the way? Did you agree with him doing that?
I think it's a good strategy if nobody else knows as well. If this is your secret, then and you feel well insulated in the place that you're at, then I could be interested in that strategy. It's there's obviously the risk, like his vote mattered, or at least helped tonight, right? If he didn't have it, they still would have gotten the result they wanted, but it could have been a little more dangerous. In fact, dangerous to him, as it turns out. But yeah, his whole tribe knows it. It's not going to be a secret. Get that vote. Get your vote. Get that idol. Let's move on.
Yeah, and that's ultimately where I land on this. Like, you may as well, because you're going to get the idol either way at the merge, which they all seem to suspect is coming, and they're accurate. But this gives him his vote back so that he can guarantee he makes the merge. And that's an important thing, like don't move the goalposts and start like thinking about the future. Just get to the future first. And this helped him do that.
Yeah, no, if you're somebody who found it completely in secret, and, I like the idea of not being the first person to say it, if no other reason than you don't have to be the idiot who keeps repeating the phrase, and you feel like really secure and in control, maybe you have extra votes to play with because you're a bigger tribe, then, I think there's something to that, but that wasn't the scenario. He'd be protecting a secret that would not be a secret, so, meh.
Yeah. All right, let's switch to another tribe here. Let's talk about the blue tribe.
But how do you think he pulled off the phrasing? That's the important thing. Let's rate the skill of doing it.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure it pained him to talk about the grace that there is in the game of soccer, but it wasn't as smooth as, say, Drea talking about a potato that the other tribes were probably curious as to how she acquired said potato. But,
people on her own tribe. Rocksroy, we had potatoes? What was that? Was that when I was like on my hike? Oh no, that hadn't even happened yet. So.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know that that's the angle I would have taken. So if we're grading on a curve here, I feel like Mike stuck the landing a bit better than Drea did.
Yeah, I thought he was awful because he said it like 3 times.
He did. He really just kept going back to it. Like, I got to say the exact words? I don't want to fuck this up, so I better say it one more time.
Yeah. Did I get it the right way? Yeah. But here's the thing. Like, getting back to kind of what I just said, it doesn't matter, man. There's no secrets, So it's like, people are like, that really telegraphs that, like, something's going on. Doesn't matter. Everybody knows, man. If 2 other phrases were said in 2 other tribes, you should assume, given what's going on in your tribe, that a bunch of people in those other tribes know. So again, you will not have a hidden idol. Don't worry about it. So all that's important is saying it. Frankly, if they were to continue this sort of thing, and you were the third person in, I think it would be a really fun scene to be like, Jeff, I'm supposed to say weird phrase in order to activate the idols that we all got. Like, just don't even play the game. Because it's not a secret, so who cares, right?
Yeah. All right, now let's move on to this blue tribe here. We got to see Rocksroy get sent to the little shipwheel island. He went with Lydia this time. And, Rocksroy in an interesting position after that last vote where, it seems as though he's on the outs. And we got a little bit more of that content where it seems like even he notices like, oh man, I'm really not connecting with these people. I don't have any social game. I didn't pick up on these cues, blah, blah, blah. Now he goes off to this island. He's with Lydia and they have to decide, are you going to risk your vote? What did you think of Rocksroy's decision specifically? We'll get to Lydia in a second.
I thought it was fine. I think what I did like from him and Lydia is perhaps for the first time ever, they didn't feel compelled to make a friend for life and spill all of their secrets. Rocksroy wasn't maybe as smooth about it to us that know, and is like, what's tight, But I do like that they both, kept their mouths shut. Now, I do wonder if it's because you could not have picked 2 more opposing forces to spend that time together. Like everybody else has been connecting. It's because I feel something from you. And they're like, so this is real nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
What a view.
What a view.
Maybe they didn't Maybe they didn't have anything to share, not necessarily because, they're really strategic, but it's like, I got nothing to say to this person.
Right.
So, and then, deciding not to do it, like, it made sense what he was doing is like, if I go for it, there's not that much benefit for me. The risk of losing it is more important. And which is what I've been saying this whole time. Like, it's just an extra vote. Like, it's not that big a deal. And so, I was fine with it. If he would have made the other decision because he rightly figured that Lydia needed her vote, that would have been okay too. But I liked his reasoning anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think he seemed to note that he didn't have enough of a connection with Lydia to feel like he had some genuine intel on her and her tribe. So I get playing it safe. And even if you are the outcast on your tribe, A, again, you're assuming that a merge is coming soon. And B, what's the extra vote going to get you? It's 3-2. I mean, I guess in that scenario, you're hoping you can get one of them and then you play your extra vote. But again, doesn't seem to have strong connections just yet. I mean, you're much more likely that you can convince Drea and Romeo to just flip on Tori and keep you. I mean, and at that point, you don't even need the extra vote. So
I wonder if that's why they sent him.
It could be.
Because I actually thought it was kind of weird that like Romeo and Drea consented to that. And then maybe it's just like, he's not going to take the risk. Like, we know this guy. Like, he'll keep it out of the, But we sent Tori. We let Tori go. She's not going to have a vote. She's going to try and get that. Yeah, one of us is the thing. But it's like, Rocksroy, he's not going to go for it.
And I think the risk of losing his vote at the next tribal, which could be a merge tribal, and we know from last season, could be a small group merge tribal. I get trying, not that he has any sense that that's coming, but I get being like, nah, you know what? I'm playing this one safe.
Which it should be noted that the next time, like, Omar will not have a vote next time we go to tribal council.
It's been so long.
And he has no idea, by the way.
Yes.
He will probably operate as though he does, and in fact, as though he has to.
It'll be great if he's completely forgotten that he even might have risked his vote. Like, oh shit, that wheel thing. Yeah. Lydia's decision, I'm assuming you're on board with it making perfect sense. Like, why would you even bother, right?
Yeah, I mean, she did what she was supposed to in stark contrast to Chanel, right? Like, it would be fucking weird if suddenly I was like, no, Lydia, take the risk. After, like, the biggest thing I've had to say about this entire season was that Chanel made the worst decision.
Yeah.
And again, she also made a decision not to spill the beans. So it's like, it was good. I support all her decision making. I found nothing about what she did or talked about to be of any interest to me.
Yeah, I mean, I get both of them actually being coy about what the situation is on their tribe, partly because, if you don't feel like you made a connection with this person through this whatever hours long walk up the mountain, then when the merge comes, that connection is suddenly not going to spark probably, right? So like, if you don't see yourself as an ally of this person in the upcoming merge, don't give them anything, don't give them something that can be used against you. So I think both of them went in with the right attitude there.
Yeah, no, and the merge not merge is announced. She can even get a hug. Rocksroy is going to be kind of like the head nod of knowing, which would, of course, we would do if either of us was the other person's loved one visit on an episode of Survivor.
Oh, so happy to bring that one up. Now I'm just picturing you running out of the bushes. John, we've brought in your podcast partner, Andy. And we just kind of nod at each other. What's up?
I'd be sitting there thinking he is totally judging the way I ran, but I nailed it, so I'm not worried
exactly.
about it.
I'm like, oh man, this is terrible form.
I got this.
It'd be so great, just some like awkward, no hug. We're not gonna hug each other.
Not even the bro hug. Nope. Not even like the five. Just be like
head nod.
Up. Yeah, let's not get too close. You got COVID once. I don't want to be near you.
You made a handshake?
Yeah, maybe really awkward white guy handshake. Yeah. We should go for one of those.
Professional like business meeting handshake, like. Sir.
Hey, who would look good running out?
I have some thoughts on who would look good running out there. Are we talking Drea?
Yes. What an amazing transition you made.
Yeah. Drea, I actually have not noted Drea's running form, but I definitely made note of the fact that Drea must have been a track star. There are certain telltale signs when watching Drea compete. And they were pretty evident in this episode. So we should talk about more podcast appropriate things about Drea, though.
Yes, and that would be all of her advantages,
She's
which
loaded
makes
with
her
them.
survivor rich.
Yes. They should name the episode that. The amulet thing is probably the most interesting one because that's one we haven't really dealt with before. So I am interested to see when we get to the merge here, is that going to motivate them to go after each other? Because ultimately, if you can get your amulet to be more powerful, I would think that's a motivating factor because I think it starts off with an extra vote. Is that what it is?
So yeah, while all three of them have it, it's an extra vote.
Right.
When it's down to 2, it's to steal a vote. And then when it's down to 1, it's
Ultimately
idle.
Yeah. I mean, and that's going to become a motivating factor. Like I said, an extra vote is nothing. I mean, Drea already has one anyway.
Yes.
So I am confused though, because there are going to be 3 of them with active amulets, right? Like, so what if one of them decides, hey, I want to play my extra vote? Do they need the other 2 to decide the same thing?
Yes.
See, that's...
It can only be played in unison.
Nah, screw that. That's too, you're not going to coordinate that unless you... Nah.
For an extra vote?
No, that's... no. I mean, I guess in theory then you're getting 3 extra votes, which is...
No, it's still just an extra
you get
vote.
1?
Yes.
What a fucking ripoff.
No, if it was 3, that'd be the most powerful advantage in the history of Survivor. It's just those 3 need to get together and then it's like, what do we want to do? And Drea's like, I have another. We have 7 votes.
We can just take out whomever. But that's the thing is, it would work for 1 vote.
Yeah, 1 vote. No, this is a taunting. This is what this is. This is whoever survives will have something of value.
Yeah.
And what would be interesting is like we have no evidence that any of them have shared knowledge with people about this.
Yes, we've seen nothing.
It's certainly
on screen.
possible. Yeah, it's certainly possible, but we have no knowledge of that. So that it will, you want to target the other people, but you can't tell people why.
Right.
You can't be like, hey, remember that very first challenge when I came out, covered in blood? I was actually getting this thing, and in order for it to have value for me personally, we need to eliminate them. Now, could you just find another way? Like, this person's dangerous.
Yeah.
But you can't say why.
Of course.
Now, what is also interesting is that Drea and Hai both seem to be either the decision makers or the co-decision makers of their group. Taku, of course, is kind of the tribe that was identified as a Tight 4. Not so much this episode, we'll get to it, but also the tribe of, the dominant, like, man god among them. Would it be that hard for Drea and Hai to say, hey, let's work together with the people we have to take out Lindsay? Like, I can see that very easily, but then what could happen, and this is why it could all be very interesting, is both Drea and Hai, like, when they're doing that, be like, I don't think I can trust that person, meaning the opposite of them. Because I think they'd probably both give vibes.
And I kind of like how Lindsay is one of the people with the amulets, because this is set up as like a taunting type thing. You want to have some people that you want to like eliminated as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to get to the fireworks factory here. So if you can start chopping some heads sooner rather than later, great. And so I have someone to root for, because if it had been across like my 3 favorite players this season, not that that's a high bar, but then I'd be like, oh no, I don't want them going home. I want those 3 to hang around for a while. So at least I can now root for an outcome where it's like, oh yeah, just go after Lindsay then it'll be great. Just get rid of her.
But if you're Drea and you're like, oh, I'm going to work with Hai to get rid of Lindsay, so that's the one there, and so you broach that plan. If you're Hai, you're like, so Drea's motivation is to eliminate people that were in
that's
this.
The thing is, as soon as you approach anybody else with the amulet about taking out one of the others, then it's like, wait a minute. Then you're more motivated to take me out, because now if you get me out, it's an idol. So yeah, it's a risk. You really kind of have to not use them in order to get the other amulet holder out.
Yeah, so all of that could be like really interesting.
Yeah.
Or it won't be, but like I think there's definitely something to play there, especially because the initial thing is fucking worthless.
Yes.
Get the fuck out of here with the extra vote shared by 3 people. Who actually gets it? That's the other thing. Like, it can't actually be like played. All 3 have to agree, but only one person gets to write that name.
See, this is why I was thinking that it was each of them get an extra vote, because like there's the logistics of okay, the three of us are all going to get an extra vote and we're going to vote for X person. You have to decide that before tribal. Like, I guess in theory you could stand up and strategize at tribal, but again, just it's bad TV and like just bad game design there.
Yeah, no, the impression I've gotten from reading the instructions is you have to do it tribal council. So, like, the three of them will have to give their key amulets to Jeff, and then you'd get a scroll. You know, like, that's it, man. Like,
throw
one
the keys
vote
into the fire as keys do.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Like, you're not unlocking shit, by the way. I will die on that hill. That is not going to happen.
Yeah.
There would, man. Like, you try and put that in a lock, it would break, man. And again, it'd be 3 keys. What is this 3-key thing that also unlocks with 2 or 1? No, man. It's not ever going to unlock something. Maybe you throw it on the dartboard. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it will not be a key-like function.
I'm telling you, you're going to, because it's a wooden key, you throw it into the fire, and then the fire gets higher, and the fire is going to snap a rope, and then that rope will unfurl a scroll that will tell you you got an extra vote or you can steal a vote. See?
Yeah.
That's how it's going to go
That
down.
must be it. I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something. Yeah, she now has an idol. That's a real thing, but everybody knows it. So yeah, like she's got doing a lot of stuff. One thing Drea is not doing is speaking in an engaging tone or manner. Like she's really dynamic when she's like just doing stuff. When she's with Romeo, or she's complaining about her tribe mates, like in like live scenes, like when she found the idol.
Yes.
But when she's speaking to us, it is just a complete flat delivery. That's probably why she was able to deliver the phrase so well and seemingly stoned like the words would have it.
Yep.
I mean, when we were doing the game last year when we were coming up with phrases all the time, I just Googled stoner phrases. Like, that's what this stuff is, right? But when she talks, it's just like, it's like she's on Dramamine.
Well, I mean, I said this before. Some people are not good at confessionals, so the fact that they're not getting them isn't surprising. Like, if you're producing a TV show, if someone's not entertaining, don't put them on TV. So, I mean, I'm guessing Drea's getting these because, you know, the content of what she's delivering is important. She's not delivering it in an entertaining fashion. Except her laugh was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. And like I'm not saying she's not entertaining.
No, not at all.
Like when she's out playing and stuff, like in actual, you know, I know the stuff that doesn't count, that is actually not visibility whatsoever.
Yeah,
because it's not speaking to the camera. That stuff, you know, she's really dynamic.
Yeah, she's like dancing when she gets the idol. She's great.
Yeah, but when she's talking to the camera, it's just, oh my God. It really stood out this one because I was already tired. I'm like, she's putting me to sleep. Like, there's just no, like, you know, like modulation to her voice or anything, which, you know, clearly is something somebody like me values. But,
well, see, it's like she shifts, right? Because when she's just playing the game and we see her, you know, walking around the island, talking to people, looking for the idols, whatever it is, she's much more interesting, engaging, entertaining. And then it's like she has to talk to the most boring person at the party. And it's us, you know? We're on the other side of the camera and she's like, oh, shit. I gotta talk to these people again. Anyway, so I found an idol and, you know, it's just like all the enthusiasm just sucked out of her voice.
Right. And like the general vibe I get from her is arrogance, which I'm here for.
Hell yeah.
You know, that's not a judgment. But it's just how it comes off in confessionals. It's just like she's above all this. Like, it's not even worth getting excited about or something. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah. Also, again, probably earned arrogance because I have it on good authority that she actually is a track star, was like legit solid ass track star. Well, that was some proper phrasing there.
Staying in.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, she's, you know, probably the type who has self-confidence because she's earned it.
Yeah. And maybe that's it. She gives her interviews like an athlete.
Yep.
You know, just
both teams played hard.
That's right. Because it's just such a weird dichotomy. She's just this dynamic presence and then nothing. Just like, give me something here. How'd you get past the interview stage? Because that's all it is, isn't it?
You know what it is? It's a code switch. We're going.
Maybe
she's got to talk to the camera. It's like, oh fuck, not these people again. Oh boy.
You know what? I actually think you might be on.
I think
something,
so.
Because in this season, she's of course, interacting with people of many different, ethnicities and such. In fact, there's only one white person on her tribe now. That's not true of the crew.
Nope.
Right? So hey,
Could
that might
be.
be something. All right, so let's then shift to the exact opposite. So she's kind of like this flat intonation and kind of boring in that specific area. There's two people that is not true at all. Let's talk about what happened with Jonathan and Maryanne.
Yeah, let's talk about Maryanne on 11 at all times.
Yes.
I mean, I get their little spat from both their perspectives. Like, I am someone who values silence, so I get why Jonathan wanted that, right? But I do know some extroverts, and they need to talk just as much as I need the silence. So, like, Jonathan's being silent and sulky is probably just as annoying to Maryanne as Maryanne being like a cheery ball of fun is to Jonathan, right? Like, they both have different ways they want to pass the time. So I get how that's going to grate on them.
Yeah, I mean, the question for you specifically, John, could you imagine just having to sit there while one person just prattles on and on and on and just
can't even, like, what scenario in my real life would have ever prepared me for such a thing?
Watching that scene, the thing that's like, I never thought that I would feel such like, a connection. Like the player I would most relate to is like the giant mountain made flesh. Because when he is just like, oh God, I can't stand people talking all the time. Will anybody ever shut up? I'm like, man, I've been there. Yeah.
Honestly, Jonathan is me every day at work. Just like, please, just don't talk to me. Come on, if we could just have a silent day. Awesome.
Yeah, and it's just like, this is the way he put it, just like, it's okay to just be silent sometimes. Like, that's the thing, like, I talk a lot, like, I never want to talk to anybody in, like, real life and all that, and, some of that's just exaggeration, but I am very truly somebody who is just comfortable just sitting there.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to say anything. And I know other people are not comfortable that way at all.
Nope.
And in fact, probably I make them uncomfortable
by being silent. Yeah.
There, right. But it's like, it's not that you can't talk. He's really liked her in the past, but it's just like, we don't need to always talk. So I was like, yes, me and Jonathan, we're basically the same.
I can barely tell you apart.
But that said, he should have apologized about the machete thing. Man, you were just wrong.
I was thinking the same thing, right? Like, if you whack the bamboo and it hits her foot, just fucking say sorry. Who cares? It was a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, I'm not going to get on them about that. They're tired and cranky. That's all that is, right?
But still,
yes.
Say you're sorry.
He's still so fucking awesome, though, right? Like, when the whole tribe, when Omar can't do anything about untying that, like, just, it should not have seemed that hard. I still, like, doesn't matter. Jonathan's just going to come up and knock those things bam, bam. And that's exactly what happened.
We actually did see, like, some cracks in the armor there, because like I said before, at the previous challenges, he was also super supportive of all his teammates, right? He wasn't just the challenge beast guy. He's also like, you got this. Come on, team. And then in this one, Omar starts to struggle, and you can see it's weighing on Jonathan. And he's finally like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. Like, it's...
To his credit, he doesn't say anything, but he needs to like walk away. Like, he didn't need to say anything.
Yeah.
So hopefully Omar wasn't looking. You could tell, like, oh, it's killing him.
You didn't need to say it with words, buddy. It was loud and clear.
Yeah. And I think once it was over, I'm sure, and there was no issues with Omar or something. But yeah, no, the only way he could have done better, from at least the way it was cut together and edited, and obviously he did make up a huge, huge, huge difference in time, was if he could have somehow hit both targets with one shot. That would
ricochet.
It's like he was using one hand. How does that even work? Don't you need the other hand to hold it in place? Nope.
Not when you're 250 pounds. That's how physics works.
This could ultimately be, a flaw of the season thus far, that the thing I'm most interested in every week is like how the challenge goes for one day. Yeah.
It's certainly a new experience for us, I think.
What do you think? So we're basically at the end of the pre-merge. Jeff will suggest that it's not quite, but yes, we are. So I think it's a good time to assess how the pre-merge has been.
Sure. It's perfectly cromulent. I mean, my worry for the post-merge, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is that I'm not seeing a ton of strong characters or even players really just yet. I think Mike's becoming a little bit more of a character, but there's really, like, Drea, even when she's not giving a confessional, same thing. But there's not like a standout or standouts that make me like, oh man, we're going to hit the ground running. The merge is going to be so exciting. We're going to see a lot of XYZ people. Like, I'm fine with seeing any of these people, but I'm not craving more of any of them. How about you?
Yeah, that's about accurate. And like, other than the one episode, it's kind of been my refrain. It's like, I'm not like super hyped, but I'm not down either. I feel like after this week, it's like, I feel like I should be more hyped. Like the madness is starting to become a problem because I don't know what I'm excited for. The possibilities of the amulet thing, that seems pretty interesting. But ultimately, like, that's not what I want to hang my head on. Is like, let's see how an elaborate game mechanic will pay off. I've been, a supporter and fan of High throughout. He's my favorite player of the season thus far. I felt this episode, one thing that crystallized for me is like, I like the way the guy delivers his confessionals. Maybe it was in stark contrast to Drea that really put it out. But even like some of the decision making as he's going over the decision, like he makes it dramatic. Like it wasn't that dramatic. Lydia's like, yeah, I don't care either one of them, right? Which was true, but I like that High. He's like, this could be the big decision, and then what the rest of my game is like. That's what I want. Make it hyped. Make it excited. If he's somebody who just lives for the drama, perfect, good, do it so that I can as well. So he's on there. Obviously, I'm really interested in like, Jonathan crushing things, but he feels like a doomed player. So it's hard to get too excited about it. So yeah, it's like, I'm not down, but I'm just not quite sure how I'm going to get up either.
Right. Phrasing. Yeah, I mean, seeing more of Maryanne would be fine. Seeing more of, I don't know, Rocksroy. Okay. No one's really making me super excited to see them on my screen. But again, none of them are making me feel like, oh, I don't want to see this person again. Maybe Tori. But other than that, like, there's nobody where I'm like, oh man, no more of this character. Really, the thing that is going to set most seasons apart from each other is the casting, right? They can throw whatever insane twists or themes or whatever they want at a season, but ultimately the cast is usually what's going to make or break the season. And like, this cast is just solid, like B- all the way across. Like, they're fine, but they're not.
Yeah, they might be C's,
And they might. There's certainly some that are, but it's hard to get super hyped about a post-merge where, there's not going to be any standouts for me to root for. Hopefully someone's going to step up as a game player that I can be like, oh, okay, well, that's something that I can root for. But so far,
it's not unheard of for a star to emerge,
sure,
right? Especially in this and scenarios. Because that's the other thing, like, the flip side of what I do otherwise think is a positive development of like people calming a bit down and not just going crazy, decision making early on. Like, it's been fairly, easy voting. Is that like somebody could emerge once things start to get real. So like, again, I'm not saying anybody else, but it's just like a thought I had while watching is there's just a distinct lack of alphas on this season. And too many alphas is a problem. Some alphas are major assholes, but some also are what drive things. And like, there are some in this season. I'm not saying that they're all betas and they're not like, certainly not all the same, like Daniel level, but it's just like, it's like, oh, that's a nice dude. And I'm like, well, okay, fine. But I need more than that eventually.
Right. So let's look forward to next week because we're going to quote unquote merge. We're going to call it a merge, whatever. So we're merging next week. What do you think is coming, first of all? And then, what are your thoughts on what you think is coming?
I mean, the fucking hourglass.
Of course, right? It's hourglass time.
And my thoughts are that.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things is that it's possible that they'll tweak it a bit to minimize how much it sucks. So I'm hoping for that. I have no hope that there's not going to be one. No. Because a thing to note is that it's a 2-hour episode. And that in itself could at least make the viewing experience better. the shittiest part of that last time was we get to an end of episode and it said, that thing you just watched, completely meaningless.
Worthless.
Let's do this again next week, right?
Yeah.
So at least, we won't like have a week of feeling that. But it might be like, hey, that hour you just watched, completely meaningless. People who thought they could win because they happened to draw the same rock as Jonathan. You not only did not win, but now you have to compete with him for individual immunity. And it's like, yeah, man, like, I get that they didn't get to see it. And frankly, for them, it's like, what an amazing storytelling gimmick. That's what, like, our winner had to turn their whole season around. She was going to go home, but then she does this and she won. What an amazing little twist we put in. I'm like, man, I'm not excited for it at all.
Well, I mean, I think you have reason to be hopeful because they did tweak that sweater savvy thing in the first episode. They've added the amulets seemingly instead of the knowledge is power thing. So odds are that they'll do something to make the hourglass different. I mean, obviously, they got some big blowback in real time last season about the hourglass thing from the players that they had. And so I'm sure production went into meetings and they made some kind of tweak. It's not going to be the exact same thing. But ultimately, like you said, the biggest flaw of having that last season was that it made the TV product absolute shit. Like, no one wants to waste an hour of their time on a fucking alternate timeline in Survivor that's ultimately meaningless, right? So
yeah,
at the very least, what's likely to happen is because we have 2 hours this week, someone is going home, right? We're going to get a payoff in this.
Yeah, and they won't like hang a cliffhanger on, will she claim immunity or not? Right. Like, because that was nothing. Yes.
Of course.
Next question.
You will always take immunity.
I can't believe she waited until Probst to finish talking before she broke that thing.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, it's most likely that we're actually going to get someone voted out, which at least resolves one of the biggest problems that they had with that whole hourglass twist last season. So
I just want them to turn the hourglass upside down. How about that?
No.
How about that as a tweak?
No, it'd be great. It'd be even funnier if they say you have to roll the hourglass down this ramp. Like, what?
All right. You have to light this fuse.
All right. So I think that's roughly it for this episode. You got anything else you want to add?
I mean, this is a short podcast, but what else are we supposed to say? Like, it's fine. There's only so much I can do with fine. Yeah. So next week we'll have 2 hours to discuss, one of which will matter. And I'm sure we'll have something to say because, at that point it'll be a real merge. There's going to be completely new dynamics. Yep. And I sound like I'm really down. It's more that I just want to be excited and I'm not yet, but I think there could be a chance.
Yeah. So if you want to discuss this week's episode, this week's podcast, anything else about this week, if you want to share some Drea gifts for no reason, go to purplerockpodcast.com. That is our website. You can join the commenters there who are a very fun bunch. Or, of course, you could find us on Twitter. I am at PurpleRockJohn. Andy is at PurpleRockAndy because we brand very well around here. And the show is at PurpleRockPod, where you can find us, me specifically, live tweeting just about every week, other than the earlier parts of the season. So, anything else you want to add, Andy?
Hit the theme music.